Successful companies know that in order to grow faster, you must have
This
the right
is
tools.
the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. Your hosts are Patrick and Kathryn Andries.
Join us each week as we explore a wide range of metaphysical topics such as dreams, astrology, intuitive readings, and life purpose. You'll receive practical guidance so that you can live your most awesome life.
Learn more about what we do at intuitiveschool.com and connect with us on Facebook at Spirit's Journey Radio. Welcome to Spirit's Journey. We are coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio, being simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. You can also find us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. We are here in the Heartland, holding the energy for spiritual truth and awareness. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Kathryn. Happy Leap Day, everybody.
Yes, happy Leap Day.
Yeah, so cool. We got 29 days, but March is just around the corner, so we are going to share with you guys some amazing astrological predictions for this upcoming month. So tune in, grab a paper and pencil so you are prepared to take advantage of some cool astrology aspects. So I want to start out by saying that this is a month focusing on the Earth. And I say that because we have Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn all in the Earth sign of Capricorn. So if you have any Capricorn on your astrology chart, you're probably feeling a lot on your shoulders right now. And it's an opportune time for you to do what you do naturally, work, right? You are the sign of the goat, the worker bee of the zodiac. So you should feel okay with all these planets in your sign because you just naturally know how to get your thing going and do it. Another tip is to get practical, be responsible, do your duties, whatever you need to do. This is for everybody. So Earth does tend to move slow, but there's plenty of aspects this month to get us in gear to move. So March 3rd, we have Venus squaring Saturn, planet of love, squaring the planet of discipline and structure. So obviously the square tension is going to mean that maybe making our desires a reality, there's a little bit of tension. Maybe our relationships are a little bit of tension for us. For example, maybe you just want to relax and spend time with family and loved ones, but your obligations are keeping you from doing that. So you're trying to work out, how do I make this relationship and family time when I have all these duties? Well, figure that one out, right? Get your kids doing chores and spend the day together.
Oh, yeah. If we could get Jill doing more chores, that would be awesome.
I know, right? It also will keep your indulgences in check. So Venus wants to indulge in chocolate. Well, go ahead and have some, but Saturn will say, just don't eat the entire box.
Right.
Yeah. So that's March 3rd. And March 5th, we have Venus entering Taurus. So I love this position because Venus naturally rules Taurus. So we have an example of a planet in its home sign, which means that it's going to work with ease in the sign of Taurus. So I think this is going to be great to help us focus on the relationships, to naturally get in touch with our body and what does our body need. And I know a lot of people are thinking about health and getting ready for spring break and summer and wanting to lose weight. So Venus and Taurus can help us do that. It's going to help us get in touch with the senses. So go out in nature, go on a walk, hug a tree, whatever you feel like doing in nature. It's a great day to do that on the 5th. So people may even begin planting a spring garden. Now the 8th, March 8th, we have Venus in Taurus conjuncting Uranus. So Venus conjunct Uranus, expect the unexpected in the area of romance, okay? If your relationship is stuck in a rut, this aspect can help get you out of it. So take action. Do something different with your partner. Maybe embark on a romantic getaway. Surprise your loved one in some other way. Are you hearing that, Patrick? Give me a surprise.
Oh, I thought that was supposed to be for me.
It works both ways. We both got to come up with something surprising.
Well, I
for
can't
each
tell
other.
you I have a surprise planned for you, or it wouldn't be a surprise, would it?
And my problem is I'm married to a Scorpio, so whenever I try to surprise him, he knows in advance what it is. So I'm gonna have to think really good on this one to get him. If anything's been inhibiting you in your relationship, Uranus wants to break free of that. So it's time to release. Be yourself more fully in the relationship. So go out, go do something wild and crazy. I don't even know what day the 8th falls on, but hopefully it's maybe it's a weekend day or something where you can actually take advantage of some of those really cool energies. Then also on the 8th.
8th is a Saturday.
Sweet. All right. So Saturday the 8th, mark your calendar for some good romantic time. Also, the sun is going to be conjuncting Neptune that day. And so basically life's going to look pretty good. You know, Neptune, we put on those rose-colored glasses. So I would just say, don't be fooled, right? Keep your eyes open because sometimes that aspect can blind us from reality. People may actually be wined and dined and swept off their feet that day. That would be another great way with Mars or Sun conjunct Neptune that day. We'll all feel heightened sensitivity to our dreams, our meditations, so it's a good day for spiritual practice as well. Following that, on the 9th, on Sunday, full moon in Virgo. I love it. Okay, so the full moon is the harvest, right? We've been starting out with the new moon, and it builds up to the full moon, so we can experience some benefits, reap what we've sown over the past month or so. But it's in Virgo, so the desire and the urge will be to improve ourselves, to be productive, to be of service to others. And so we can ask ourselves, where do I need to improve? My health, my business, my home, my relationships. Everything is on the mode to be improved, make it more efficient. And even if you think it's perfect, Virgo can always find a way to make it better. So if you want to know where you're going to be triggered, you have to find where Virgo is on your astrology chart, okay? That's where you're going to be triggered to make improvements. So it's a very disciplined sign as well. Earth sign as well, and so I think this full moon is a great opportunity for a full moon ceremony outside. If the weather's cooperating, you can really enjoy yourself at the full moon. March 10th, yay, Mercury goes direct. So we're coming up towards the end of this 3-week period, more or less, of Mercury slowing down, which means the communication has been slowed down. There may have been some communication snafus, and you've been processing. So we still have a little bit more time to process. How do we communicate? You know, I'm actually in the process of doing a rebrand of my entire business as well as Patrick is. And that's a great thing to do with Mercury retrograde. And then when it goes direct, you know, you bring out your new message, your new brand to the world. Also, if you've been holding off on signing big contracts because you know that's not a good thing to do when Mercury's in retrograde, after the 10th, feel free to sign those contracts, make those plans, buy those airline tickets, whatever you've been putting off, because your chances of success will be greater. All right, folks, we are coming up to the equinox, March 20th. I'm excited for that. It's the sign of Aries, and Aries is the ram. And so it reminds us of the importance to be a leader, to take charge, not to be afraid to stand out in the crowd. So this is going to be a really significant equinox, I think, in terms of really bringing forth our assertiveness, our uniqueness, our own identity. And then that same day, we have Mars conjunct Jupiter. Wow. This is 2 fiery planets colliding, Mars and Jupiter. And so it's going to create an abundance of energy and optimism that day. In addition to the equinox, I mean, I think it's March 20th. Mark your calendars, folks. It's going to be a big day. And what day does that fall on? Saturday, Patrick, or April?
Well, in April?
I mean, I'm sorry, March 20th.
March 20th is Friday. I also need to make a correction. March 8th is a Sunday, actually. I was looking at February. Sorry about that, guys. So,
okay.
Yes, March 8th is a Sunday. The 20th is a Friday, and then the 21st is a Saturday, and we have Teresa Padilla scheduled to come back on to talk about seasonal foods for spring. So I'm very excited about that. Spring is just around the corner, everybody.
Oh, yeah. So that's going to help us get our body in tune. She's going to share some awesome stuff about cleanses and all that good stuff. But so Mars conjunct Jupiter on the 20th. You need to use this optimistic energy to get going. So maybe it's time for spring cleaning. If you haven't gotten in the mood yet, by March 20th, you'll probably be in full gear to get out the broom, the mop, and clean up the house, start the garden, go after your business goals. So the only key is know what you want. I know we want to do some landscaping in the backyard. I want to get some rocks. We have a big mud pile back there. And I'm like, maybe that's the day we get some rocks and do the garden. Anyway, just don't overdo it. I was just picturing myself picking up rocks that are too heavy for myself as I said that. Jupiter and Mars is going to want to cause us to push the limits. So know where to rein it in. Okay. And March 22nd, Saturn is going to be completing its sojourn in Capricorn and be moving into Aquarius. It's only going to be there for a couple months, and then it's going to hop back to Capricorn. But March, April, May, June, July, Saturn in an air sign is going to be very different. It's going to be helping us really structure how we serve the world, how we get in tune with our humanitarian purpose in life. Okay. March 24th, we have a new moon in Pisces. And this, Pisces is going to really inspire us to focus on our dreams, our ideals. What would be the ideal world and way that we want to live our lives? It can quiet the chattery mind and help us follow our intuition with the moon in Pisces. So I think this is going to be a way to end the month in a very peaceful, kind of meditative, spiritual kind of groove. And then March 31st, we've got Mars conjunct Saturn. And this is a powerhouse in terms of getting things done. So I really see March as a very productive month. Mars and Saturn, if you haven't gotten your taxes done, that's going to put you in gear to get that done.
Yeah, I've been asking you for your taxes for a while now.
Well, I got to wait till the 31st here with Mars.
I already got
Saturn.
started on mine.
I know, right? I always put it off. I keep saying I'll do it. So Mars is aggression, and it can bring up anger. So this is a good time to find a way to release pent-up emotions and anger. Hopefully the weather will be good to get out in nature, walk, run, whatever you need to do. But there's going to be a lot of physical energy and pent-up frustrations that need to come out. So that is March in a nutshell. So if you have questions about what's coming up in March related to you, feel free to call in. We are taking calls today. What's the number, Patrick?
So in the United States, you can call in at 213-233-3998. In the United Kingdom, you can call in at 44203-393-2871. And if that went by too fast for you, you can also go to our website at tfrlive.com. That's the station website, and it's right there on the front page when you tune in to listen to the show.
All right. So feel free to call in. And I'm a lover of astrology. I've used it in so many ways. Patrick said, let's do an interview about you and astrology and how you use it in your life. And so I thought that would be really useful to kind of explain how I do it. And the best ways to do that is an interview with my hubby. So what do you want to know, Patrick, about how I do astrology and how it helps me?
Well, first of all, just give you a little bit of background. Kathryn Andries she has a degree from the University of Michigan. She has a very deep metaphysical background through the School of Metaphysics, through Berkeley Psychic Institute and Body Mind College in California. And she also is certified through the National Federation of Astrology. And so she has a very deep background. She's been working with clients for years and also teaching classes. A lot of this is the foundation of her book, Soul Choices, her series, which she has a book for individuals for the life purpose. Astrology is a big part of that. And also a book on finding that ideal relationship and also keeping it and developing it and nurturing it. So all of those foundations really come down to astrology. So I was wondering, how can astrology help us to understand ourselves?
Well, it is an awesome tool for self-awareness, and it uses the planets, obviously, like other modalities use things like numerology uses numbers, palmistry uses the palms, and astrology uses the planets. And planets have such a powerful influence on the earth, and because we're part of that earth, it's such a strong indicator of our personality, our potential. And so really, anybody who studied psychology, if you begin to look at astrology, you'll see the correlation between the planets and the different psychological aspects that people exhibit. For example, Venus is how we express love and what we value and how we appreciate ourselves and others. And so psychologically, it relates to how we do relationships, basically. We can look at the astrology or the psychology of Mars, which is just the planet is fiery red. And so it brings up this idea of how we use our energy and where we want to direct our energy this lifetime. So in terms of our urge to fight for rights in the world, whatever we think is important, whether it's save the environment, whether it's women's issues, we all have something that we want to fight for that we think is important. And Mars shows where that is. And so if we're not using that Mars energy, a lot of times people will physically get ill because they're repressing the natural urge to express it. So it helps with health. It helps with relationships. It helps with our career. It helps with just basic self-awareness. So I can't stress the importance of understanding your astrological influences.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a moment.
Okay.
I know that a lot of people have probably read the astrological forecasts in the newspaper and they think, oh my gosh, that's so general, that applies to everybody. And they think that is astrology. So if somebody thinks that the forecast, nowadays they're probably getting it online or through some kind of an app or something like that. So what would you say about the kind of astrology that you do compared to what they might find on an app or online or in a newspaper?
So that is a great question, because you can only get so specific when you're trying to write, let's say, a news article talking about Virgo. What happens is they're working at the macro level and saying, anybody who's got a Virgo sun sign, this is what's up for you today. Well, you can take that like 20, 30, 40 degrees deeper, more micro level to understand specifically what's going on in that person's chart. But you can't do that if you're trying to write an article for an entire world, right? And so it is accurate at the macro level. But in order to get way more specific, you have to do an individual chart reading for that person. So it's not that it's inaccurate, it's just missing 50 million other details.
Well, I can definitely attest to this because I've studied some astrology just enough to really kind of understand what's going on. But when I look at a chart still, I'm definitely by no means an expert, because we've got this wheel with 12 different houses. And then we've got all these different planets. I mean, if you think of all the planets in our solar system, all of those planets are having some kind of a micro influence in our overall chart. And not only do we have a certain position that everything is in when we're born, which sort of sets the tone for our life. This is my perspective of it, by the way, so don't take this as an expert perspective. And so you can kind of elaborate or correct me if needed. But then everything's in motion. All the planets are still in motion. This was where my science background kind of comes in. But everything is in motion and updates and changes as we go. And that's where the whole progress chart comes in. So, there is a lot of depth to that. So, is there anything that you want to add to that in terms of, just the depth or the detail that people would actually get through a chart that you or another expert astrologer would create?
Well, the first thing is that so astrologers are human, and so the reading is going to come through the filter of the experiences, beliefs, and knowledge that that particular astrologer has. And so the deeper that astrologer has gone in their own self, in their own life, and in their spiritual journey, I think the reading is going to reflect that. So I always say, switch around, try different astrologers, unless you have one that you just really connect with and like, this is my person. And that person has done their own personal work and continues to do it, then I think the chart reading, can be really accurate. You want somebody who is going to be objective and be able to tune into you personally, and that's what an individual astrologer can do versus a computer printout. The other thing is the art of astrology is putting together the different symbols and getting real accurate, and you just cannot do that on a computer printout. You need the human mind to be able to do that, and I think a really good astrologer blends the logic and the science of astrology with the intuition, and they both combine together to get the message of what is this chart trying to relay, what message.
All right, so let me play devil's advocate one more time here, because I've heard this a lot. And so when people are looking at astrology and they're thinking, oh my gosh, how can these planets that are a million miles away affect me, little old me, right here on planet Earth? So for people who are kind of wondering, okay, so I get that it's all based on the planets and they're moving and it has some kind of an effect, but how is it that these planets actually affect us during our day?
So that's a great question, because it's an energetic influence. And just from a physical perspective, so the moon is strong enough to change the tides of the ocean. And so we can see then that the moon relating to our emotions, we just can observe when the full moon's there. People just seem to be a little bit crazier. The energies are heightened. If you look at throughout history at all the big major events, wars, new presidents being elected, all different things like that, we can look at the astrology of that time to see how that event is related to that, to see, wow, this stuff is really real. And since we're part of the earth and we're energetic beings, the energy comes in through us and expresses out through us the way that we choose to do that. And so it has a major impact on us, even though the planets are up there, because energy is not, location dependent. We can feel the love of our mom or our dad who live 50 million miles away in a different state or different country. Just because we're, separated from that doesn't mean energetically we don't feel their love, right? Same way with the planets.
So when we take into consideration the foundation concept in spirituality and metaphysics, that we are spiritual beings, that we are beings of light and energy, and we are in this physical world having this temporary little experience in the grand scheme of things. So how does astrology relate to our overall spiritual evolution and existence then?
So I think that astrology is similar to the universal laws that were put in place to help us grow. So, for example, we have the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect. We learn through the consequences of our actions. And likewise, astrology is a tool to help us learn and grow. We can use the power of the planets to work on our weak points, know in what direction to go and where. Otherwise, we're placed here, and there's a million different things we could do, a million different ways we could direct our life purpose. So we need some guidance, like, what am I here for? And so astrology is that map of where we are to go this lifetime. What are we supposed to do? So it gives us structure and direction, which is invaluable.
That's awesome. So people are always asking me, so how can they get a reading with you? Where do people go? What's the process? Because people are always asking me that.
So they can go to intuitiveschool.com. That is our website, and go under readings, and there's a tab for astrology. Click it, sign up for a reading. It's that simple. Love doing individual readings, progressed, future, relationship readings. There's like 6 different kinds. You can see them all listed there on the website. Or send an email to info@intuitiveschool.com.
So obviously, since our show is going out all over the world, do people have to actually meet with you in person to get a reading?
Oh, no, that's the great thing with technology, right? We meet over Zoom, Skype, and do the reading that way, and it's all recorded.
So if they're doing it at a distance, like over Zoom, do they still get that whole nice report and stuff like other people do?
Oh, yeah, it's a full reading. It covers everything, whatever the person is really looking for, and it's all recorded now, so it is, good for life, that recording.
So, okay, so if they get a recording, what form is that in? Is that like a CD? Can they do an MP3 so they can listen to it on their phone? How does that come together?
Either or both. Just like we do with our past life readings, etc., we can record them as an MP3 and send it, or actual physical CD as well.
All right. So are there any additional resources in addition to like getting a reading with you? Are there other resources that you would recommend that they look into to do more study or kind of look into it?
So I do always give resources for people when they get a reading based on their chart. So certain people, based on their chart, I direct to different resources. So I can't just say in general, but if you just want to learn more about astrology, there's a ton of astrology books out there. Stephen Forrest is an awesome astrologer. Just in general, I'd recommend him. And then when I look at somebody's chart and I see what they're working with, I usually try to find a book or resource that I think would be best for that person.
So what about your book, Soul Choices? That one's really more focused on life purpose, but would that be a good way for people to kind of get their feet wet with their astrology and their chart and how that applies into their life?
Totally, because obviously our chart is meant to help us understand what our purpose is. And that's exactly what I hone in on in the Soul Choices book. In the Soul Choices relationship book, I focus on how to use your planets to understand you in relationship to make better relationship choices or improve the ones that you already have.
All right. Well, we'll have to cover relationships and start digging deep into that when we get back from the break, because that music tells us that we're getting ready to come to the break at the bottom of the hour here. This is Spirit's Journey on Truth Frequency Radio and One Talk Radio, and we will see you on the other side.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
Back from the break, and if you want to call in the United States, it's 213-233-3998. In the United Kingdom, it's 44203-393-2871. And this is Spirit's Journey. If you're joining us, I am Patrick, and Kathryn's with us.
Hello, we are talking about astrology. So if you got any questions about mate relationships and how your astrology plays in with it, or anything else, give us a call.
And so we are here once again on Truth Frequency Radio and being simulcast on One Talk Radio, and we are talking about astrology. And in the second half, we are talking about relationships and how astrology can be useful in a relationship. So how is it that astrology helps us in our relationships?
Well, relationships can be such muddy messes, right? And difficult to make choices. And so I used astrology to determine if I should be in a relationship with you. And it turned out that I should. No, but honestly, so how can you use it in relationships? Well, you need to know what you're dealing with, right? And so by doing a chart of you and a person that you're thinking of marrying or getting involved with in a business endeavor or anything, you could see the strengths and weaknesses of the two people coming together. So the really cool thing is when two people get together, a third person is born, which is the astrology chart. So you have your own individually a chart. The other person has his own chart or her chart. And then when you come together, we form what's called a composite relationship chart, where we take the midpoints of both charts and bring them together. And so that has to be nurtured as well. And so this composite chart, in other words, the energies creating by the two people coming together, form their own particular purpose. And so it's really valuable for two people to see clearly from an astrology standpoint, what is the purpose that we have together. What is our past, present? And the more that the couple is in alignment with the purpose, the more chances that that relationship is going to survive and thrive. We can also, when we have a conflict with somebody and we want to get to the bottom of it, astrology will show us where are the conflicts, where are the planets not getting along, and then you can figure out a way to resolve that. So I remember one time I had this friend and we would just always argue, and just the communication was horrible. And I went to this astrologer to get some advice on it. And she just looked at the charts, and the first thing she said to me, she's like, "You two must have really interesting arguments." And I had to laugh because it was so true. I mean, they would just be these bizarre conflicts that would go on. And you couldn't even figure out what was really going on. And so that was really helpful. And really, the planet of communication, which is Mercury, in my opinion, is one of the most important planets in terms of relationships, because it's about communication. And if you cannot communicate with somebody, if you cannot relate to that person on a mental level, you're going to have a pretty hard time enjoying that person and making it long lasting. It's going to take a lot of work when the Mercuries are out of sync, particularly with male and female relationships, mate, intimate relationships. We really want to look at Venus and Mars to see how compatible are these people in terms of sexuality and just getting along and in being attracted to the other person. You know, we have those short-term attractions, and then we have the long-term ones. And so when our Venus and Mars make harmonious aspects with somebody else's, we're pretty darn sure that there's going to be this attraction for life. We're all not going to look like we're 20 years old, but when people have a good Venus-Mars connection, even when they're 60, 70, 80, they're still attracted to that person because it's more than physical, right? It's this vibe that they're just naturally drawn to. So that's really important to look at those in terms of, is this going to be a lasting relationship or not? And then I really like to look at this idea of complementary relationships, where one person complements the other. Think of it like water and earth. So earth gives direction to the water, and water nourishes the earth. So they're not as good alone as they are together. One person you could look at it as one person has skills that the other doesn't, and where they lack, the other person has skills and can pick up there. So it's like a complement, like two puzzle pieces that fit together. And the opportunity for couples like that is that they can really create stuff in the world when they each rely on the other's strengths. It can only be a hindrance if you use it as a crutch, and you never try to develop some of those qualities or traits that the other person has. So our relationship is that complementary water-earth. You're Scorpio, I'm Virgo, and we just naturally have skills and abilities that complement each other.
I have a lot of Virgo in my chart too, and you have a lot of Scorpio.
Right. So we're kind of like, two sides of the same coin. We understand each other. We work well together. It's just beautiful complementary relationships. And a lot of times couples actually will be afraid. One of the two people will be afraid to come to me for a relationship reading because they're afraid that I'm going to say, "Oh, you're not compatible." Well, guys, listen up. I never will say that two people cannot be together or that they're not compatible, because you can make anything work. And again, there's other paths besides astrology. There's numerology, there's palmistry, there's other areas in life where you where you may find greater compatibility just than looking at astrology. So again, it's also paper. This is the chart on paper, but what is the person doing? So sometimes, I look at two charts, I say, wow, these two people really understand each other. You could, you're attracted to each other. And then in person, they're like, yeah, we're having a lot of problems. We don't communicate well. And I'll be like, wow, the paper chart doesn't show that. So likewise, two charts that may seem like there's a lot of conflict and tension, the people might be like, yeah, we're doing great. So you also have to take that in consideration. So a complementary relationship works nice. Also, we have the opposites attract scenario where two opposite signs are drawn to each other. And that's because we have the opposite sign on the inside of ourselves. So we're Scorpio on the outside and our opposite is Taurus. So we could be attracted to people with a strong Taurus energy. And this is not so much mate relationships, but just an intrigue, a desire to be around that person, because whatever qualities that opposite sign has, we want to bring those out in ourselves. So those are ways you can understand your relationship. Just what are you dealing with, and where are the strong points, where are the weak points, where's the attraction?
So one thing that I have seen is that there's a big difference between knowing what your influences are with astrology, and that's the way I like to describe it, is that these are influences. They don't dictate who we are or what's going to happen, but they are influences in our lives that kind of steer us in one direction or another. But I found there's a big difference between having those influences and knowing what they are and using them. I mean, would you say that some people, I've heard like with different astrological influences, there's like the kind of tendencies when you're really using the influence well, but then there's also kind of like these weaknesses if you're not really using it effectively.
So, so can you be more specific in exactly what?
Well, so for example, I'm a Scorpio, and so a lot of times the Scorpio influence can be very powerful, but if you're not using it very well, you might be very revengeful or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So the cool thing about astrology and all the different paths that I work with is that there's always a positive, or what we could say productive expression, and a negative or not so productive expression, because we have free will. So you're exactly right. This is not binding you to be a certain way. It's saying this is kind of the energies, but energy can be expressed in many different ways. So you can express it positively or negatively. So let's take an example like the number 8 in numerology, which is equivalent in astrology to the Capricorn. So Capricorn in the positive is, the leader of a corporation that really values his or her employees, that shares the power, that has a vision, and that also not only physically is good with the business, like knows how to bring in the money and structure the business, but also brings in a spiritual component and has a nice culture to the company. That's the positive. Now, in the negative, a Capricorn can be all work and no play, like really hard on the employees, making them work holidays, weekends, forgetting the spiritual, cultural component of the organization and just focusing on the numbers. So again, it could be positive or negative. And so the way astrology helps us is that it shows us, clearly says, okay, here's 2 ways that this energy can go. Which way are you going to use it? Because sometimes when we're expressing in the negative or going down that path, we don't know it. It's unconscious. And so by doing the astrology, it comes to light and we're like, oh man, I have been expressing the negative of this particular zodiac sign. And then we can consciously, willfully pull ourselves to the other side to exhibit the more productive behavior, because it not only helps us, but it helps the other person as well. All the other people that we come in contact with, we have a higher vibe, a more positive vibe. And so it's always having that awareness of, I'm going down the negative path of this sign. I don't want to go there. And we know that we create neural pathways in the brain. And the more that we practice a particular habit, pattern, or way of being, the stronger that neural pathway becomes.
Interesting. So you mentioned the compatibility with different signs. So are certain zodiac signs more compatible with each other? You mentioned anybody can have a relationship, and knowing the astrology kind of helps them create the best relationship that they can. But are some just naturally more compatible than others? And what might be some examples of that?
Well, of course, certain signs blend easier together. So, for example, we could group all the earth signs together. Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. Okay. Earth approaches life and responds to life in a similar way, a practical way. And so earth signs do well together, as well as earth and water, the water signs being Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Again, earth gives direction to water, water nourishes earth. So that's a wonderful thing. When you're with people of the same element, you approach life and respond to it the same way. So there's compatibility there. Now, air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, are more mentally oriented and love to talk and theorize and, connect people, places, and things. So air works well with fire. Fire signs being Leo, Sagittarius, Aries. And as we know, air stimulates fire. So fire is really enthusiastic. It's looking for a mission in life. It's looking for a place to get up on the soapbox and tell the world what they should do. That's fire. And so they need air people to give them the ideas, and then they take those ideas and run with them. So they're wonderful together. They stimulate each other, and they're both interested with each other. So an example of, some elements that kind of don't work so well together, water and air. They're just very dissimilar. They don't have a lot in common. And air and earth likewise. So earth is practical and air is all airy-fairy. It's like, what? They just don't connect. Water and fire. Water can put out the fire. This person is all zestful and ready to go conquer the world, the fire person, and then the water person is crying and all emotional, and they just put the fire out. So there's sometimes difficulty there. The water is kind of a Debbie Downer to the fire sign. But again, it's dependent on the individual person. So those are some examples of elements working well together and those that kind of need some help.
So we're going to go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole here. I've heard that you could actually get some information about past lives from astrology. Is that true?
Yep. That's the cool thing about the chart. You can see the past as well as the present and where that individual is heading to the future. So where we've come in past lives really forms the chart of what we need. So we can look at something called the North and the South Node. The South Node is where we've come from in past lives. In the zodiac sign that it's in is something that we're very familiar with. It's like second nature. And so whatever your South Node is, that's a big picture of what you did in your past life and how you did it. The moon. So the moon comes out at night. It represents more of the subconscious, what is really instinctual to us and very familiar and comfortable is the moon. And so again, that's revealing another piece of the puzzle about what we have done in past lives, what we feel comfortable with, the sign that we're drawn to. Pluto is the planet of evolutionary movement. And so we can see from studying Pluto how through many past lifetimes we have caused our growth, where we have been triggered into a crisis and then on to resolve that crisis. And so we can put all those pieces together to form a story. So it's a fictional story based with facts, okay? So we have the planetary facts, but then we make up a story around it to kind of see a typical lifetime that a particular person would have had. So it's fascinating, and people really can tune in to that when an astrologer can tell a past life story to that person.
So we also do past life readings. We usually describe this as an Edgar Cayce type of reading because it takes both of us to do it, where you actually go under and do the reading, and then I facilitate the reading by taking you under and asking the questions and guiding the process. So how would looking at a past life or a lesson or something like that in astrology compare to our past life research that we do through the intuitive readings?
So one of the differences is that the intuitive readings hone on you at that particular moment in your life and pulls up a lifetime that most resonates with you at that particular stage that you're in. So the astrology chart just looks in general at what was the most recent past lifetime that's influencing you now. But as you progress through your life, you kind of move beyond some of that past life stuff. If you're doing your chart, you're evolving and moving towards, for example, the sun sign, which is the evolution. The north node, you're moving away from the south node towards the north node. So an intuitive reading when you're age 30 could be more accurate to describe where you have evolved to and what lifetime you're most associating with.
So when we do the past life readings, we usually do like a little snapshot of that past lifetime to give them an example of the kinds of things that they were focused on. And then we get into the significance of the lifetime so that they can understand the learning that they are in right now compared to what they were learning then, and how they can use that information. So sometimes it might be a lesson, for example, that they are still struggling with. Sometimes it might be one that they mastered in that past lifetime that they're struggling with now, so they can apply that wisdom and understanding that they've built in that. So is there any kind of correlation with their learning? How would that relate, like with the past life information in an astrology reading?
So what we can tell from the chart is, based on this past life, these are some of the challenges that you're going to experience. What we can't tell until we talk to the individual is if they have mastered it or not. And with an intuitive reading, because we can do it at that point in time, in other words, pull at that moment in time, we can tell based on the reading what they're still challenged with and what they've already accomplished.
So just like we do a past life reading for an individual, or we could actually do a relationship past life reading too with two friends or a couple who is seeing each other romantically. Is that possible with astrology as well, to do past life research with couples as well as individuals?
That's really interesting. So because of the composite chart, you can see where the couple is meant to go. In terms of, the past life of those two together, I really don't know a way to do that in the same way that we do the intuitive reading. So the best bet would be to look at each individual's past life on their chart and then look at the composite chart and see if you see any similarities.
Interesting. So what does this have to do with the big picture of human evolution? And so how do we use astrology to look at the big pictures? What can we see about where we've come from and where we're going?
So that's a great question. So we have what are called astrological ages, which last about 2,000 years. And that gives us a big picture of where we're evolving towards and where we've come from. So we're coming out where we are transitioning out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. So if an age lasts about 2,000 years, it's not just like one day you flip the switch and say, okay, we just switched ages. It could take 20, 30, 40 years for the transition into the new age to occur. So in the big picture, the age of Pisces, which is what we're transitioning out of, was all about belief in something greater than ourselves. We didn't need proof. We just believed. We were looking for people to follow. And so we see the rise of the last 2,000 years of a lot of religions. The idea was that there's this person, this sage, that knows more than we do and has direct access to God, but we don't. And so we need to go to a church or something to listen to this person that supposedly knows us more than we do. Now, as we transition into Aquarius, the age is about I know. So no longer are we wanting to blindly follow some leader, but we want to know for ourselves. We want to have direct experience. We want the tools because we don't see ourselves as different from somebody else. We just realize that they must have done some studies or have some experience that we don't, but we want to know how to get where they're at. So now, rather than churches, people are looking for schools. They're looking for teachers. They want to learn the tools. So it's an awesome age to be born in if you are a teacher, if you have secrets that normally in past lives, past times you couldn't reveal them because maybe you were in a secret society or something like that. Now you freely can teach that. Hopefully you're in a free country where you can do that. So it's a beautiful age for people who are also wanting to let go of the ego stuff, because the Aquarian age is about, we're in this together. This is a group effort. And I don't need a hierarchical structure where we have a president of the corporation or somebody hovering over us telling us what to do. We want it to be more like a democracy, right? Where each person can have a say in things. So what do we find in the world is we are not getting along with countries who are still in the Piscean age of, tribalism. A lot of countries in the Middle East have one leader, right? It's very authoritative and everybody else has to follow. And we're the opposite extreme, right? We're about freedom and more self-governance. And it's interesting right now in the United States, we're kind of caught between those two. The people who want less government, they want more autonomy, they want to take the power into their own hands. And then we have this group that want to be taken care of, that want the big brother. They want to be told what to do. And so we're kind of battling those two. It's the Piscean versus the Aquarian age. And there's people out there, leaders, that want the Piscean age, where they're the leader and they know and they tell everybody else. And then there's other leaders who are more Aquarian-like, who are really thinking of humanity and how can we give humanity the tools so that they can thrive and be self-sufficient. And so, we've had the rise and fall of great civilizations over many years of history. And we can look at big events in history and see what was going on astrologically. So it gives us a big picture of why certain things happened when they did, like, women's lib, the building of the railroads, World War I, World War II. There were so many astrological things that explained why then that crisis occurred.
So we've talked about a lot of things here, and I know that we probably are opening up many new questions with all of the things that we're discussing. So if somebody wanted to go deeper into this, I know that you work a lot with life purpose as well as relationships. So where could somebody actually go to study with you, like a class or something like that?
All right, so for KC peeps, I am teaching a class on Saturday mornings in the Kansas City area. I also teach online. So the online class right now is based on individual need. So I don't have a group one going right now. So if somebody wants to learn astrology online, we can set up an individual class. Check out my books to get an idea of my flavor of astrology, see if you like it. And I think the best way to learn astrology is to use yourself as a guinea pig. See how you are expressing the planet. See how what's going on in the world and how that affects you and how you're dealing with it. I always use people as my examples in my astrology classes. It's like, okay, if you want to understand the Leo energy, let's look at some famous Leos to understand how they manifest that energy.
All right. So again, from my experience over the years, I found that a lot of these techniques, astrology, as well as many other different intuitive arts and sciences, they are really gateways to help us connect with our intuition. So the person you're working with is going to have a lot of influence on interpreting that information. So use your guidance, use your internal guidance to find the right person for you, and then work with that. And then the most important thing, though, is to apply it in your life. It's just like interpreting dreams. If you don't apply it in your life, you can't really see it. So we love having you with us. Please connect with us on Facebook at Spirits Journey Radio. Be sure to like our page so that we can be part of your life and you can be part of ours. And we want to keep this relationship going. So you can also study with us by going to intuitiveschool.com. This has been Spirits Journey live on Truth Frequency Radio, simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. I'm Patrick Andries.
I'm Kathryn. Thanks for joining us. We will catch you all next Saturday.
Bye for now.